Hello everyone, happy Valentine's Day. At the time of writing this, it's December, but I wanted to get a head start because I know if I procrastinate, I'm not going to be able to get it done in time. So, little fact about me, I'm not much of a shipper, at least these days. Back in high school, I loved the concept of shipping. And it's kind of the mindset I'm in to have to make this video. Bakugan does have quite a few couples, but instead of talking about them, I'm going to talk about some couples or ships that could have happened. I got down a little bit of a list here, and I'm basically going to be going through them and explaining why I think this could have happened. We're looking at it through the context of what these characters are essentially like in canon, and if they were in a relationship, what I would see it as. Without further ado, let's get started. Okay, to start us off, I'm gonna go with a pretty big one, and that is Spectra and Mylene. I don't necessarily think they would be like a cute couple, but this is one I feel like could have happened before the show started, and it wouldn't really surprise me. Specifically, these two could have been together in this hypothetical when Spectra was Keith. Spectra's real identity isn't explored that much compared to, Alice and Masquerade, but I think it would be pretty interesting if we had found out that, Keith and Mylene were an item once upon a time, and as he starts finding out more and more about the Bakugan, something about him changes, and it eventually results in the two breaking up, and maybe Mylene's competitive nature towards Keith or Spectra also had something to do with it, so it was like a terrible breakup on both sides, because Mylene does not like this guy at all. And I think it would have been an interesting way to add more fuel to the fire. This doesn't need to happen, but I do think it would have been interesting if they did. While keeping Spectra in mind, might as well get this out the way. Depending on how deep you want to look into their relationship, I could imagine Spectra and Gus happening probably sometime after the show, in between New Vestroia and Mactinium Surge, when they both come back. Gus doesn't really get a lot of screen time. Well, okay, Spectra doesn't either, but this one kind of writes itself, if we're being honest. You can look at their relationship as platonic, or from Gus's perspective at least, romantic, and it doesn't really change that much. The one thing about these two, if they were in a relationship, is I could imagine if Gus becomes a little too much, then I can imagine getting on Spectra's nerves every now and then, like the whole "since when were you my mother, Gus" incident when Spectra left without telling him. Now, before you pick up your pitchforks, you're gonna have to hear me out for this next one. This is entirely due to how young I was when these episodes came out, but I thought Marucho and Fabia would have been cute. Now, again, hear me out. Fabia is 15 in Gundalian Invaders. Well, in the Japanese version, she's 15. In the English version, she's 16, and Marucho is also 15. So, the reason Marucho is actually, just looks like a kid is honestly just because at this point he's just really short. I believe the term is shota, basically the male equivalent of like a lolly. I am very, very upset that I know these terms. This isn't like a high one for me, but I just thought these two looked a little cute together when I was a kid. Another one I thought of when I was a kid was Dan and Julie. Obviously, because in season 1, Julie has this massive crush on Dan. Like, if this was a harem anime, Dan has his options and would end up going with Reno because she's, quote, the main lead. I am so sad I know these terms because I'm watching too much anime. Anyway, and Julie is gonna be like that second choice that a lot of the other people would say, well, if they were in Dan's shoes, they would pick her. And I know this because, again, when I was a kid, Julie was really, really popular amongst the guys. Looking back on it, I'm not too hung up on this one as I was back then, just because I think these two are just better as friends. By the time Gundalian Invaders and kind of New Vestroia get here, Julie is clearly over her crush because, she has Billy, and just seeing how natural these two interact, I just think it's a much better dynamic. This one is kind of purely due to the dub possibly adding dialogue. I say possibly because I haven't looked at the Japanese one to confirm this, but Ingram is supposedly Hydronoid's household friend. And, well, Ingram never showed up at all in the first season, so I'm under the impression that Ingram is a new Bakugan that was basically given birth, in a sense, after Drago became the perfect core and gave birth to new Vestroia. So this would mean that Hydronoid and Ingram, if this is canon, they would have had to become friends and get really close during that, I think, 2-year time skip. And honestly, I just think it'd be really cute if Hydronoid had a girlfriend or boyfriend, because Ingram's gender kind of changed. And also, it would be relatively cute if it just so happened to be Shun and Alice's partners hooked up. It'd be real nice. And while we're on the topic of new Vestroia, might as well go with this one, Ace and Mira. I don't really talk about Ace, at least not in a positive light that often. One of the reasons I'm so hard on him is because I am really infuriated that they just didn't go anywhere with his crush on Mira. Or at least his heavenly implied crush on Mira. I feel like it has to be canon that he has a crush on Mira because Ace doesn't really have anything going for him. And at least if the silent attempt at the cool new kid, even though Shun's right there, is... It would have been probably interesting just to have that dynamic. Like, I wouldn't say make it too much to the point where it's comedic and then you just can't take him seriously, but hey, at least if he was genuinely in love with Mira, you could try to at least go into that and see what these two could look like as a couple, because the Bakugan was never really that show, at least when we go off of season 1, because if characters had feelings for each other, they hooked up in the original season, at least by the end of it. But new Vestroia, they just don't. Okay, and the last ones we got, well, Rin and Fabia. I think if we lived in a world where they didn't have to keep bringing Dan and the others back every season, and Fabia and Rin were like the forefront of the whole plot, at least more than they already were, this is something that definitely was going to happen. Like, if Rin or Fabia were the protagonists of Gundalian Invaders, this story kind of writes itself. Like, you know, two people who are on opposite sides who could end up falling in love. I think that would be great. Though I would think that they would, or probably should, fall in love post the series, or at least by, you know, kind of get together. And politically, for these two characters, I think it would be a really big stepping stone to try to patch everything up, since Gundalia and Nethia were at war with each other. Like, it just writes itself to me. And after that, I have Dan and Alice. And this feels like it easily could have been a thing. Like, when I really think about it, if Runo wasn't going to be with Dan and you had to get Dan with someone, I think Alice was definitely a safe bet. Probably would have kept her in the show a bit longer. I say probably because Runo was missing for one season. And also it'd be really cute to have like a little power couple, you know? The top two battlers, technically, would be, you know, these two, because Alice was Alice was Masquerade, and due to technicality, kinda is number 2, but that's neither here nor there. And also, Hydronoid and Drago would just have to see a whole lot more of each other. Maybe their rivalry would last a bit longer, even after Drago becomes the perfect core, just because he has to keep seeing him after he comes back. And while we're talking about Alice, I think it kind of goes without saying, if this was a top 10 video, then number 1 would obviously be Alice and Shun. Back in the day, people shipped these two so hard. Heck, in the Japanese version of the show, Murcho's there too, but Alice's last shot of the Bakugan series, outside of like pictures and stuff, is she's standing beside Shun as Murcho's explaining Bakugan inner space to them. But also, like, if we take it all the way back to the beginning, Alice and Shun were the oldest members of the team, and at times it felt like they were the parents because they were the most level-headed ones. And they were, well, in terms of battle smarts, they were the smartest ones there as well. The most level-headed. And there's that really good episode when Shun ended up fighting Kaba. I'm always going to bring up that I think I'm saying that name wrong, but it's whatever. Where Shun was going to leave and Alice was desperately trying to get him not to leave. I think if this did happen, like, let's just say Dan and Runo are together and, you know, we got the whole, oh, she's not bit in Vestroia. Shun and Alice also got together, but they're just kind of keeping it on the down low. I think it would be really funny because it's implied in the dub, at least, or heavily in the dub, that Link falls for Alice. And it would be, I think it'd be kind of funny if he just got jealous of Shun. It would definitely switch up, or at least add an extra layer to their battle with the Ventus Master Ingram episode. And Alice also just has this kind of motherly like aura to her, if that makes sense. I know she's not that much older than the rest of the cast. It's like a year or so. But considering Shun's mom issues, it makes sense. It makes sense. Anyway, with that, we're done. As I said, this video is pre-recorded as of right now. I wrote the script in December. It's January right now. This should be uploaded by Valentine's Day. If I had to predict a video that might be out by the time you guys are seeing this, I might have uploaded ranking the first battles of each season, but we'll have to see about that. After this, I want to start experimenting with the channel. As I've said, I want to try different things, just see what happens. Because I know I can't be doing background forever. But don't worry, if you're just here for the background content, it's not going anywhere. I just want to get my foot in the door with other things, so by the time I eventually do decide to step away from background, it won't be as a jarring jump for you guys. So with that said, I'm Mike the Warrior. Tell me, what is your favorite couple or ship in Bakugan? I can't believe I'm saying this. And yeah, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.